This is a Hot Pie Original.
There are two interesting off-the-field subplots going into the NFL season. The NFL is interesting year-round. It's interesting year-round not just because the game itself and fantasy football and gambling, but the drama of the stuff that goes on off the field is pretty dramatic as well. The shadow, the story of all stories hanging over the NFL is two things. One is Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Okay? Why that's going wrong, there's a bunch of reasons to it. A lot of it having to do with ego, a lot of it having to do with being a diva, a lot of it having legitimate reasons for saying, I don't like where this franchise is going. So Aaron Rodgers, the MVP, is faced with the prospect of not playing. I mean, think about next year, two of the best players at their particular position, two at different points in their careers. Two quarterbacks may not be playing next year just because. One of them would be Aaron Rodgers. The other, arguably one of the three best young quarterbacks. I'm not even going to say arguably. One of the best young quarterbacks at the young end of the Aaron Rodgers spectrum is Deshaun Watson. He may not be playing. Now, before I say anything about Deshaun Watson, of course, there has to be the full clarification. If Deshaun Watson is in fact guilty of sexually assaulting women, this isn't even a discussion. We need to be talking about why it is that Deshaun Watson is not in an orange jumpsuit on his way to jail. If he is guilty of something non-consensual, we don't need to talk about football. We need to talk about why the prosecutor is not going after him. But that's not the case right now. There is not a criminal case against Deshaun Watson. There are more than a dozen civil cases of women claiming that he would drop his towel while getting a massage. Not making it up. Okay, so you can believe, we don't know what to believe. I don't know what is right. I don't know if he's guilty of something non-consensual or if there's some confusion with these women that he would meet on Craigslist, which is not a great idea. Okay, there's that. So, don't twist it around and say, well, the most important part here is whether this guy is guilty of sexually assaulting women. Yes, that's right. You need to talk to the prosecutor in Houston why that's not being investigated. Either way, the Houston Texans are a train wreck. They're horribly run. They are the most dysfunctional franchise in football. And I think if the season were to start today and Deshaun Watson is not playing, they're the worst team in the NFL. They're a mess. They're a mess with or without Deshaun Watson's issues with naked massages or whatever, meeting women on Craigslist, whatever his issues are or his crimes could be or crimes not, whether he's being blackmailed, whatever the situation is. They're a mess even before him. They created their own mess. Now, to sit back and watch the Texans and Deshaun Watson, and I'm just talking about the finance here. Think of a player, and this is how franchises have to think. Think of any player as an asset. So with the Green Bay Packers, you have this asset that they obviously don't want to get rid of. He's at the top of their game, but they're stuck in a similar situation for different reasons. What do we do with this incredibly valuable asset? Do we want to hang on to that asset, or do we want to sell that asset and get maximum returns? You got that option. The Texans, who are horrible, who suck, who have nothing good going for them, except one thing. They have one valuable asset. One. The rest of them are gone. They got rid of all of them. Okay? It's like you have a beautiful house in central Austin and you keep getting rid of the stuff and don't even sell it. They took J.J. Watt and put him out on the curb and put a Craigslist sign on him. So they've screwed everything up to rebuild their franchise, but they still have one asset left, or do they? The Texans are guilty of, in a market sense, they buy high, they may be selling for nothing. They may get nothing in return. And that may not be their fault. That's what's awful about this. In a less than perfect world with a ridiculously run franchise, they could say to themselves, all right, look, we're such a mess. He doesn't want to play here, and I don't blame him. Okay, he doesn't want to end his career in with that train wreck of a franchise. I know people are going to say, but he's getting paid. He should show up to work. The question now is, from the franchise perspective, they've got an asset, and if they're going to rebuild their franchise, if they're going to get on their feet in any way, if they're not going to be a horrible franchise 3 years from now, they have only one way to do it, and that's get something for him. There's only one way, because they have nothing else to sell. There's only one piece of value they have that could help them out in the short term and long term. The only way for them to get back to any level of respectability is to sell that asset and use that to build their franchise up. Well, we're getting closer and closer to Judgment Day, when they don't know what's going to happen with him legally. They don't even know if he's going to show up at all. Their worst nightmare, which is not their fault, is starting to get closer and closer to reality, and that is the double whammy. In other words, Deshaun Watson says, John McClellan is the co-founder and creator of ATX Hot Sauce in all 50 states, now in several retail outlets as well. So we're going to turn it over to the social media rock chef superstar, and we're going to walk through a few sauces and why you should buy. We've done beet heat, so we're second in line now for the tasting. Don't forget, everyone, go to atxhotsauce.com. So here we go.
All right, so this one is our smoked habanero 5-pepper. We smoke habaneros with ancho,
Is that going to hurt?
This one? No,
Yeah.
This one's actually really, really good.
Okay.
This is like your traditional tapatio, but without the vinegar in it, right? And because of that fermentation process that we've talked about all the time. This one is great on sandwiches, pizzas, things like that. Great on hot wings. I think you're going to really like this one too, especially the smoky flavor with the adobe chipotle and the smoked habaneros. We actually smoked the habaneros before we...
Does that go with the cab?
This would not go with the cab. This would go with the great Chenin Blanc, though.
I knew you were gonna. I teed you up with that one.
Yeah.
That is good.
That's good. Isn't that good? It's just classic take. Well, it's a new take on a classic item. So it's called smoked habanero 5-pepper.
All right, don't forget
One of my favorites.
Don't forget atxhotsauce.com. I'm not playing. I got too many issues. I got legal issues. I got financial issues. Or I just want to get away from this scene for a year. I need to get my life back in order. And I need to go and fight all these women who I think are wrongly suing me. Maybe that's part of it too. And he just says, I don't want to show up to work with those guys. I'm just going to get the crap beat out of me. I'm going to get hurt. And I'm such a young guy. He is such a good player at a young age. He is. He's still going to be just fine a year from now. A year away is not going to make him a worse player. So I could see somebody sitting around him saying, okay, one, you got legal problems, or two, you got legal problems and you need to fight back and get out of it. And either way, just don't worry about playing football next year. What do the Texans have? Zero. You got zero. You got nothing. The one thing that you wanted to sell, the one chance to get back, and now that's gone. That's possibly gone. I don't know what's going to happen yet, but it's possible. And I believe the financial structure would be such that he would get a little bit more money out of them, and they would get nothing in return for him unless they can trade him. Now, they can't trade him right now because they have no idea every team that wants to do business with him. It's like someone's looking at your house. They really want to buy it, but you got termites. Tell you what, you give me the inspection and there's no termites, we'll talk. Until then, forget it. The Texans have a termite problem. No one's going to buy until they get this fixed. No one's going to buy until this guy is an asset that can show up to work next year. So the teams are saying, not us, man. We're not taking that off your hands right now. We don't want to take it off your hands. One, if he goes to prison, don't know. Two, if the league suspends him, don't know. Or three, if he spends all of his time back with the Craigslist women. We're not touching this until it's fixed. That screws the Texans. They have nothing to sell. And if they have nothing to sell, the only good thing they have, they're even worse. And this time it's not their fault. Everything else that has happened with that franchise is because they are stupid enough to screw it up. This time, it's not their fault that Deshaun Watson, one, is guilty of what he's accused, or two, is being framed. But either way, it's not their fault that he's had massage problems, or he's a criminal, or he's completely innocent, or whatever. It's not their fault that he's been working out at some junior high the past few weeks talking to his lawyer all the time. It's not their fault that they may be left with zero in return. Zero. And that means they're bad for a long time. If they sell this asset and get a lot for him, they can get better and get better in a hurry. Or they lose this asset, get zero in return, and they've got nothing for years to come. Here's the upside. This is ESPN's Adam Schefter talking about this. This is what a financial predicament they are in.
His football future is in question. And with camp coming up in under 2 weeks, that does become the question about his future. And as you alluded to, he wants out of Houston. He doesn't want to be there. I think the Texans have mentally and physically prepared to move on without Deshaun Watson. And so the question becomes, when do the Texans trade Deshaun Watson? Is it this summer, this season, after the season? I personally think they'll wait until his value is restored and they don't have to sell him, trade him off at a discount at any price. But if and when they do come to the point that they are ready to trade him, there is no team out there better positioned and better armed to go trade for Deshaun Watson than the Philadelphia Eagles. They already have 2 first-round draft choices. They have a potential 3rd first-round draft choices. They have depth on their roster at certain spots. They are out of the conference. If there's anybody that can make a deal for Deshaun Watson when Houston is ready, I would watch Philadelphia.
Yeah. Now watch it not happen. Did anybody bother to ask? See, he's in a weird spot then because that may not be what he wants. He may want somewhere else. He may want Denver. He probably would have loved San Francisco. He probably would have loved Miami. I mean, that guy, I think he thought life was going to be really good and he's going to get out of Houston. Now he's stuck with possibly Philly or bust or staying there in Houston. He's not staying in Houston. He doesn't need it. They don't need it. It's a terrible marriage. And in this time, that the sad thing about the Texans, for all of their own dysfunction, this one's not all their fault. It's their fault for ruining the team around him. He put them in a horrible spot. He's in a terrible spot. They're in a terrible spot. And the way out, as Adam Schefter just explained, is for the league and the legal system. Remember, these are all civil charges. These are civil charges. Notice how quiet it's been the last couple of months about these claims. That's either gotten quiet because there's something more serious in the works, or one day you're going to wake up and go, oh, that's over? What happened? And everyone got paid. So it's now quiet, which I hope for the Texans. That because we don't want them to suck any longer. They've screwed it up enough. We want them to get better. Hope for the Texans in the next 2 weeks, the announcement is made, deal's over, issues settled, he's fine, they're fine, everyone's moving forward, and they can get something for him and rebuild a franchise that's a train wreck.
From the Hot Pie Media Studios in Austin, Texas, it's the Jeff Ward Show. Listen at jeffwardshow.com.